Welcome! Asgarnia is amazing. Let's dive in and I'll show you why. Starting with the shops. Okay, the shops aren't crazy, right? Maybe not the strongest start, but there are shops. That is a thing. They do exist. You've got in Falador the gem shop. It is uncut sapphires, so that can be some good early crafting with or without a shop relic. You've also got the bag plant lady in Falador Park, and while bag plants are kind of expensive and likely not that worth it as a training method, if there is a relic that impacts shops, this is 100% going to get some value out of that. You're able to train up your farming and your construction from level 1 using bag plants, even though it's not that fast, but with leagues, it's going to be really fast. So that is a cool option, and I think even if there's not some sort of shop relic, you probably do this early and just pick up like a quick 40 farming, 40 construction, something like that, to just make training farming elsewhere a little bit easier. You've also got within the Falador mine a couple of pickaxe shops, able to pick yourself up a ruined pickaxe. Moving towards the south side of Falador, you've got Sarah's farm, little farming shop next to the allotment patches and things down there. We'll talk about those in a second. You've also got the crafting guild, which has a hide tanner amongst other things kind of hanging out in there. And then in Port Sarim, you've got a fishing shop, and just in case this is useful, there is a jewelry shop. Since we're all going to be Iron Men, one of the early game ways of getting money can be thieving jewelry through the ham storerooms. So if that ends up being a good option and you don't quite have high alchemy yet, this shop is definitely a good place to sell all of that jewelry, get that early cash going. And quick note from the editor, there is also the Heroes Guild shop. It is another source of dragon weapons. Now the caveat being with this, you don't actually get the Heroes quest automatically unlocked with the Asgarnia region. So a little bit of a pain in the butt to get into, but once you do have access to it, you get the Dragon Mace and the Dragon Battle Axe, which not necessarily better than the weapons you already have access to in the starting area, but they do give you a couple of specials that you can play around with. And again, if there's a relic that has to do with shops and maybe giving you a discount or whatever, then that can also be a good source of GP for you. Now, in terms of the skilling options, you are picking up a full-on farming patch thingy. Got the herb patch, got the allotments, got the flower. That's all south of Falador next to Sarah's farm. But you're also going to pick up a couple of tree patches. You're getting access to the Falador rooftop course, which is a level 50 course. Again, you've already got some really good agility options in the starting areas, so probably not the biggest deal, but you are also going to pick up the shop that you can use the Marks of Grace. And while Graceful and Stamina Potions are essentially useless in League since you have more or less infinite run, there is oftentimes tasks associated to both of those things. So you'll at the very least be able to pick up some points by buying Graceful, maybe making a certain number of Stamina Potions. Stamina Potions are also needed for upgrading your player-owned house, so there is some use with those there. Then you've got mining and smithing, and this is where there's just so much going on. Not only do you have the mining guild, so you've got like the 99 mining cape, that's cool, get some extra ruin rocks in there, pick up some amethyst, which can be good for things like amethyst arrows or amethyst bolts once you get that unlocked through Slayer. So those things are all great. Then you've also got the Motherlode mine for just AFK-ish mining. You've got the star mining shop as well, so if you want to do stars during leagues, you certainly can, and you'll be able to spend those points if you have Falador. Plus, you're getting the ability to repair that dragon pickaxe that you get through the volcanic mine. So by picking up Falador, you will eventually be able to get that. Gonna have the prospector's outfit, and then on the kind of lower end side of things, you've got Camdozel up near Ice Mountain. So you're able to do some mining in there. You can also get a little bit of smithing XP, plus pick up this hammer, which you're able to wield. Not that that's going to be super useful for you in leagues, but it may end up being a task, so you might end up having to do that anyway. You also have the option to do some fishing down there, kind of like a lower level fishing option for you. I get a little bit of cooking XP as well, using a knife on those fish as you catch them. And of course, you're getting access to the Rogue's Den. That's where the Graceful shop is. But that also means you're going to be able to get the thieving outfit as well as the thieving cape. Both of those things really benefit pickpocketing. The crafting guild, as I mentioned with the shops, it has all of the various spawns for the different molds and whatnot, kind of just around there. The crafting cape itself is also really good as like a bank teleport once you get that unlocked. So you're definitely going to see a lot of value out of that teleport as you go further and further into the league. Of course, on rune crafting, you do get a couple more things. You've got the lower level ones. I didn't put them in here, but you do get access to air ruins and mind ruins. Okay, I hear you, Ruin. Let me try this. You also get access to Law Runes. God, that feels so wrong. It's so cursed, man. I don't, okay. Law Runes, Body Runes. You also get in Camdozil the like chaos whatever things from killing the chaos golems, but you would need the wilderness in order to use those, so it may not end up being super useful unless, you know, you're pairing these regions together. Moving up here, we have got Mahogany Homes, and while you can technically access this in other areas, you have to start it in Falador. So like, you're gonna have to get contracts through here, and the shop is also in Falador, so even if they add that capability to do contracts elsewhere, unless they add the shop, you have to have Falador in order to get access to that. So that's gonna come with things like the saw, the whole outfit, plus it's just generally good construction XP. Last little call out I've got here is Turiel. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with him through Turiel skipping. In leagues, you don't have to do that, since all of the Slayer Masters are treated the same. But in terms of the location of Slayer Masters, I certainly like him more than I like some of the starter ones. He's not the closest to the Berthorpe teleport, but he is, I think, a little easier to get to than someone like Banaka. Now, for the mobs and activities, there's not like a crazy lot to do. For as big as Asgarnia is, you're picking up this mostly for the God Wars dungeon or the Taverley dungeon. So it's kind of where a lot of this stuff lives. You'll get spiritual mages up in the God Wars dungeon, help get you things like dragon boots. Going down here to the right, you're also picking up a lot of like various Slayer task related creatures. It's not necessarily the best place to kill Slayer creatures, since they tend to be kind of spread out, but there are a lot of them in God Wars, so you'll start getting those tasks once you pick Asgarnia. In the Taverley dungeon side, you're also going to be getting what I think are probably easier access to dragons. While you technically have access to dragons in the starting area, it's kind of a pain in the butt to get to them. Taverley dungeon, while being a little bit far away, I think is a little easier to get to than something like the Soul Wars Isle dungeon, where you have blue dragons out there. And then you also get easier access to black dragons as well. Then we've got the Warriors Guild. Everybody's familiar with the Warriors Guild because the defenders are just so good for melee. So obviously picking Asgarnia, you're going to be able to pick up a dragon defender, just slowly grinding it out there. The rates should be boosted for those drops as well, so if you're used to going dry on defenders and taking a long time, while it still will take you probably a little bit to get through all of the different tiers of them, it is going to be boosted, so you should hopefully be able to pick that up relatively quickly. There are wyverns in the Asgarnian Ice dungeon. Nothing particularly crazy about these, but it does give you another option for picking up a ruined crossbow if you want to go that route. Granite legs if you're feeling a little like troll, you want some really bad fashionscape. They do have a high range defense, so like there's a real niche use to these, but otherwise, you know, maybe as like an AFK option for a Visage, these are also pretty good for that. They drop a lot of supplies and stuff as well that are noted. And the last major thing that's here is pest control. Now, last year, pest control was super good for just training. So not only do you get like Void as a reward, but just the XP reward. And this is because points for minigames are boosted in the league depending on your relic tier. And you also had access to the combat achievements giving you more points, and those stacked. So that would mean you could get like 40, 50, 60 points a game and then trade that in for XP. You know, 2 games for like 100-point trade-in, and the XP is boosted. So like all of that together made it absolutely insane XP. Debatably the best XP in the last league, maybe competing with something like Soul Wars. Now there has been talks that the XP is gonna change for both Soul Wars and for pest control. Right now, I don't think any of it's locked in, but I won't be surprised if we see the amounts of XP going down, either maybe not getting the multipliers or just being scaled back for leagues. So it's something to keep an eye on. It may not be as strong as it was last year. Now again, for as large as Asgarnia is, the mobs and activities, not that many. So if you're lacking mobs and activities, click that subscribe button. It's like my used car salesman voice right there or something. But hey, I mean, it does give you something to do for the next like half a second, all right? I'm helping you out. Okay, anyway. Bosses. This is the real reason why you pick Asgarnia, all right? I mean, you get a little bit of benefit out of some of the other stuff, but you're coming here for God Wars mainly. So you've got all of the God Wars bosses plus Nex, plus a couple other ones listed out here. So just to go through them really quickly, you've got Commander Zilliana, drops the Armadillo Crossbow, the SGS, and the Sarah Sword. SGS is gonna be a good special attack God Sword. It heals you up. While there is typically some sort of relic that will like help you heal back your health or your prayer or both, if you end up not wanting to take that choice, then the Saradomin God Sword can help to balance that out a little bit. You've got Bandos for the iconic armor, as well as the BGS, which is going to be a really good spec for just lowering stats on things. Now, I will say, because in leagues, you typically are more powerful, you don't get quite as much benefit for draining the stats on enemies, but there are still some really tough enemies where if you have the special, you might as well use it. Just squeak out a little bit more damage. You got the big bad Zammy boy right here, giving you the Zamorak Spear, not the Hosta. Just remember that, all right? I think we all get used to using the Hosta because it's better. It's a spear. It's a spear drop. You don't get access to the Hosta. We'll talk about it in a second, but just remember. You're also getting the Staff of the Dead, as well as the ZGS freeze special. Probably not that useful in leagues, but who knows? You know, if they do something with freezes, maybe. Does technically drop the Steam Battle Staff, but we all know that's trash. Then we got Armadillo, of course. Armadillo armor, really good range armor. The AGS, just kind of like straight damage spec. There are better damage specials out there. So again, not sure how useful this God Sword's gonna be, but it is fun to hit high. And then of course, Nex, in the center of the God Wars dungeon, gives you the best in slot melee armor, best in slot range gloves, best crossbow in the game. Also has a chance to drop Dragon Bolts, which is gonna make your crossbow even that much stronger. So there aren't a lot of places you can get these. Most of those come from Fremnik, but this is one area where you're able to pick those up without having to go the Fremnik region. Plus, you've got the Ancient God Sword, also gonna heal you. A little more complicated than the SGS special, but a heal is a heal, and it also does a little bit of damage, so it's kind of a mix. Whew. All right, that was the God War stuff. For the rest of the bosses, you've got Cerberus in the Taverley dungeon. Gives you all of the different boot upgrades, as well as the Smoldering Stone. So we'll talk about each of those in the gear section. You are also getting access to the Whisperer. They have confirmed you do not need the desert in order to do these bosses, so you can just pick up Asgarnia, and you're gonna get access to the Soul Reaper Axe, the Virtus Robes, as well as a piece of the upgraded Warrior Ring. And last but certainly not least, the Giant Mole. Poor guy basically has no drops to his name. Yes, you can turn in his hides and his claws and make Saradomin brews, sure. But if I had to pick a boss out of this list, I am 99.9% sure the Echo boss is gonna be the mole in this area. As to what he'll drop, I have no clue. What does an empowered mole drop? You know what I mean? But like, this boss has essentially nothing going for it. So like, it is the perfect candidate to be the Echo boss. I'm gonna be so disappointed if they go with something else. But that is it on the bosses. So let's take a look gear-wise what we're working with. And obviously for melee, there is a lot because all of the God Wars bosses drop little bits and bobs here and there. Early on, you're able to pick up something like Void through Pest Control. While it's not the best defensive, again, in leagues, you're gonna be so strong that the defense probably won't matter. So like, this is gonna be a really good kind of like starting set. You can even use it into the late game for certain setups. Then as you get a little bit stronger, start to pick up some more things, you'll be able to take on Bandos, get that Bandos armor with strength bonus. You'll get the Dragon Boots from the Spiritual Mages. You have a couple options of weapons. Now, one thing I'll say, both of these weapons are gonna be two-hand. And again, that's because the Zamorak Spear can't be made into the Hosta without Kandarin. You have to have Barbarian training. You have to have access to that area in order to make it, unless they change it for the league. So these sort of like mid-game weapons are two-handed. You're not gonna be able to use your defender very well, but you can get an Abyssal Whip in the starting area. So like, you still have that available to you. Man, it's just a little unfortunate to see that. But yeah, so you get the Zamorak Spear, the Sarah Sword as well. Both of those are just kind of fun options, especially if they do something like upping the attack speed. You know, machine gun Sarah Sword is a thing. pretty fun. And then you're also going to be picking up all 4 of those god swords from the 4 different bosses. Just give you a little bit of variety in terms of spec weapons. Once you get into the late game for melee, you're getting best in slot armor with Torva. You're getting best in slot melee boots as well. Ancient god sword for another special for you to play around with. Soul Reaper axe. So there's definitely a really strong core setup to melee. Now, I already mentioned the Hosta needing barbarian training for Kandarin. If you want to upgrade Bando's boots into the Guardian boots and then Echo boots, Guardian boots are going to be Mauritania. Echo boots are going to be Mauritania plus Varlamore. If you want to upgrade your Dragon Defender into the Avernic, that's going to be Mauritania. For the Warrior's Ring, you're going to have to go Fremnik to get the DK ring so that you're able to combine that together. I don't think this is a good enough pickup to pick Fremnik, just throwing that out there. And then there is Elite Void, and I really wish it was easier to get Elite Void, but in order to unlock this, you need the Western Province Hard Diary, and that's going to require you to get both Kandarin and Taranwyn. So Elite Void is almost certainly going to be locked out for folks because I don't know that Taranwyn, Kandarin, Asgarnia is a good combination. But for those of you who disagree, you can pick up Elite Void if you end up with that. Now, I also put Bronze Gloves here. This is more of just a reminder that while you don't unlock any of the Recipe for Disaster stuff by picking the area, there is a subquest or 2 that involves pieces of Asgarnia. So by picking this, you are potentially able to move that quest forward and get yourself, an extra level or 2 in the RFD chest. But again, you would have to pick another area that actually starts that. So that way you're able to, get past helping the cook and actually unlock the chest and sort of the subquests for helping the NPCs. On the range side, one of the changes that they've made this year is by picking Asgarnia, you are guaranteeing the cannon. You're going to get access to that. So it is useful. Outside of range, you're primarily going to use that to train range, but you can use that for like helping with your Slayer tasks if you want something to help kind of like aggro things. So it does have its use, and I think it's a really nice choice to be able to use the cannon with Asgarnia. You don't have to, in the previous league, you had to pick Kandarin and Asgarnia, so it was definitely a pain in the butt. Of course, you've still got the Void setup. Going to be a really good range setup. Honestly, it's going to be really good in certain situations anyway, like might be better than Armadil in some cases. But as you go into the later game, yes, you are going to pick up Armadil. You get the best in slot range boots. You are going to have to do medium clues for that to get your rangers to combine those together, but hopefully that won't be too bad during leagues. As I mentioned before, best in slot gloves through Nex. You are going to get the Armadil crossbow, which upgrades into the Zerite crossbow once you start farming Nex for that, plus getting access to the Dragon bolts as well. That is going to be a nice upgrade if you end up using the crossbows. Now, if you want your Armadil armor to kind of go up to the next tier, that's going to be combining it with Missouri's in the desert. And then of course with Elite Void, again, you've got that combination. And for the last combat style, Mage. Now, something that they've changed this year is allowing access to those Desert Treasure 2 bosses without the desert. So that really helps Asgarnia with the mage setup. So not only are you going to get Void early, but also later into the game, you're able to use Virtus Robes with the Staff of the Dead and actually have an okay magic setup. I wouldn't necessarily pick this as like a mage main, but as an off style, I think this is really well needed for Asgarnia because you get such good setups for range and melee especially. So being able to pick up a region where you can still do all right with mage, I think is just super, super helpful. For the best in slot boots, you're gonna have to take the desert because you need infinity boots in order to make these. So a little bit unfortunate, you're not able to complete the set of 3 just through Asgarnia. The Whisperer does drop the Shadow Quartz, so if you really wanted an upgraded Ancient Staff for that, it would be the Desert and Fremnik. I don't think that the Shadow Quartz is particularly good, so I definitely wouldn't use that as an excuse to pick up both of these, unless you've got some other reason behind them. And then again, Elite Void, it's there for you if you want it. I don't think I'd recommend it. I don't think I'd recommend it. As much as I've said that, I don't think I would. And to round things off, we've got the task breakdown. Now, last year it was 18 easy, 30 medium, 32 hard, 22 elite, and 3 master. This was an okay area to take early on. Granted, a lot of the tasks are locked behind things like God Wars, Nex, the other bosses. So it might not be like the ideal first choice, but considering how fast Leagues is, it's not that difficult to get yourself into God Wars, especially because you have something like the Void Armor, and paired with all of the powers from things like the Relics and the Masteries, I think you'll be alright if you did end up taking this early. Big tasks were focused on things like God Wars Boss KC. Last year that was a combination of any of them up to 500, plus all of the God Wars combat achievements. Then you'll have dedicated things for like Nyx, Cerberus, the Whisperer. All of those were about 300 KC, plus all of their combat achievements, of course. You're gonna have all of the rare equipment tasks because there's just a lot of stuff. So you're gonna have things like Armadil, Bandos, Torva, any of the various weapons, the God Swords, the boots, anything like that. And then actually there's a decent amount of skilling stuff going on. So you're probably gonna see some tasks associated with things like the Mining outfit, the Graceful outfit, the Carpenter outfit as well. You might see something for the Rogue's outfit. You may even see some stuff associated to star mining, though we'll have to see. I think mining stars in Leagues is a little bit of a challenge just because it's a little harder to find stars, but there is the Star Miner plugin and Discord for helping you find those, and they do put together a Discord chat for the Leagues, so that makes it a lot easier. And that's all I've got for you. Gonna be putting out more League area reviews, so make sure to subscribe if you want to see that. Got my Discord linked down in the description if you want to join that, and I will also be streaming the League once it starts. I'm going to start a little bit early, 9 a.m. on the 27th. Probably be talking League strategy, stuff like that, and then whenever the game mode kicks off, we'll just switch on over. So with that, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.